So we've seen how Muhammad was living in a house buzzing with harmony, with connections, with kids, with family relationships. You know, the house where he had his four daughters married to their cousins, but also he had his adopted son Zayd, his adopted son Ali. He also, you know, the three kids of Khadija were there. Ayman, we saw her, his nanny was living with them. She was married to his adopted son Zayd. They had a kid called Usama that was growing up also with them. Halima al Saadiya, his foster mother, would be visiting. His auntie will be visiting. Zubair was living with them. Really, a household, if you can imagine it, of abundance, full of energy, full of harmony and connection and family relationships. And you know, if you think about it, if everything goes as normal, he would grow up to become like really like a comfortable Meccan granddad living in Mecca. You know, his daughter's married to their cousins. Probably he will have like even more grandkids living all around him, pretty comfortable. He didn't really need much money at that time. Khadija was rich. So everything will go as normal. That's how you would imagine his life would go on. And you know, some people will think that maybe Muhammad was always destined to be a prophet, and maybe that's true. But another way to think of it is to say, actually, he was destined to be just a normal Qurashi Meccan man. If everything was normal in his life, that's what his destiny would have been. But something would happen that will change everything. Something will happen that will turn his destiny ups and down and will put his life on an absolute roller coaster, not just his life, a roller coaster for everyone who was also with him in his household. In fact, only a little bit shortly after he became his dawah, he began preaching as a prophet. The first thing that happened, he got confrontation with his own family. So much so that his own uncle Abu Lahab became a very big enemy to him. Abu Lahab was a proud Qurashi man. He didn't like that Muhammad was challenging his ancestors. He didn't like that Muhammad was challenging his family. So when they confronted each other, at one moment, they were like really like a big confrontation. And the verse came in the Quran, Tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tab. He was literally cursed in the Quran for actually opposing Muhammad. And when this happened, Abu Lahab will call his two sons. If you recall, his two sons were married to Ruqayya and to Kulthum, the daughters of Muhammad. He will call his two sons and he will say, divorce those girls. I don't want anything to do with this guy, Muhammad. Send him back his girls and let him worry about him rather than worrying about bothering us in Quraysh. So the two daughters now were divorced and they will come back to their own household, broken, left by their own husband. They even put pressure on Al-As, the house of the husband of Zainab, to divorce her as well. They went to him and they asked him, just divorce her, let him, send him back his daughter. But Al-As, because of his close relation with Zainab, he refused to divorce her. But that was just the beginning. After that, it became unsafe in Mecca for them to stay. Ruqayya, after she divorced the son of Abu Lahab, Muhammad will marry her, will give her in marriage to Osman ibn Affan. Of course, Osman will become later a very famous Sahabi and the third Khalifa of Islam. So now Osman will marry Ruqayya, and when it became really unsafe, they had to even flee from Mecca. Even before the Hijrah, they had to flee to Abyssinia. So now the family, that harmonious household, already started to split because Ruqayya now with her husband had to flee away. And of course, only a few years later, it became unsafe to all of them. And Muhammad at that time, he had to go himself and take all his family with him in the famous Hijrah to Medina. And that's when Muhammad, at that time, Khadija had died. Muhammad will take his two boys, Zayd and Ali. He will take his girls, Ruqayya and Kulthum and Fatima. But Zainab, his oldest daughter, will come to him and will say, Father, I know you're going to Hijrah, to Medina. Can I have your permission to stay in Mecca with my husband? Because she loved her husband and she had a family there. So Muhammad agreed that his own daughter will stay behind, and another split in the family. Muhammad will leave will take everyone to Medina, but Zainab will stay behind. And Muhammad now he's getting busy in Medina with his family, trying to establish the new community. And not long after the Hijrah, 2 years after the Hijrah, Quraysh was attacking them at a moment when really their survival was at stake. And Muhammad will declare jihad in Medina. He will call all the men to join the Muslim army to go and fight against the Quraysh because they were being attacked in the most famous battle of Badr. And Muhammad will call all the men to come and to join and to leave for Badr. But then Osman ibn Affan, his son-in-law, will come to him and he will tell him the news that his daughter Ruqayya was very sick. She had a very high fever in Medina. And then Muhammad asked Osman, he said, okay, Osman, you stay behind, take care of my daughter. We will go and fight. So Muhammad went with the man to Badr, a very difficult battle where their survival was really threatened completely. And they were outnumbered 1-3 against a more powerful and better equipped Meccan army. But then the miracle happened and the Muslim prevailed against all the odds. The famous battle of Badr, and Muhammad won and the Muslims won, and they were elated. And after the battle, Muhammad wanted to, handle with the prisoners, handle with the burials and everything. He wanted to send the news to Medina. So he sent Zayd, his adopted son, to Medina to give the news that the Muslims has won. And here you have Zayd running on his horse, arriving to Medina to proclaim, Allahu Akbar, the Muslims have won in Badr, only to be met by a pale Osman ibn Affan, a pale and sad man. What's the news? What happened? And Osman will give him the news that Ruqayya, his wife, had just died. On the same day when Muhammad and the Muslims won in Badr, the same day his own daughter died. Just imagine Muhammad now coming to Medina with the huge celebration, elated with a celebration from God, but also receiving a news that his own daughter has given his life. God has taken her own life. And he used to say those verses in Mecca earlier before. He used to, in the Quran, in Surah Al-Najm, he would say, أَمْ لِلْإِنسَانِ مَا تَمَنَّى فَلِلَّهِ الْآخِرَةُ وَالْأُولَى. Is to man what he wishes? Oh no, is to God the beginning and the end. And he would also say, وَإِنَّ إِلَى رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. Is to God is the return. وَإِنَّهُ هُوَ أَضْحَكَ وَأَبْكَى. He is He who gives laughter. It is He who gives tears. وَإِنَّهُ أَمَاتَ وَأَحْيَا. It is He who gives death. It is He who brings life. And those words coming to life, so true. And the moment when he was celebrating his victory, he was also mourning his own daughter. Without those, that was what he was teaching to his companion, that it's all in the hands of God. Without that faith that he was preaching and revealing and reciting, without that faith, how could he deal with all of this situation himself? He was embodying those verses that he was reciting only a few years earlier in Mecca. But another thing, amazing thing happening as he was entering in Medina, he had the prisoners of the Quraysh. After the battle, he had the prisoners with him. Who was among the prisoners? Al-As, his own son-in-law, was among the prisoners, the husband of Zainab. Now imagine Al-As when he decided to leave with the Qurayshi to fight the Muslims in Badr. Zainab was sitting at home and she was praying at night, and she would cry and she would pray, oh God, don't bring the sun on a day when I will learn that my kids have now become orphans. Oh God, please don't bring the sun on a day when I learn that my father had died. Imagine her feeling. Her own husband that she loved was going to fight her own father that she also loved, and that one of them, if not both, could actually die. And in those moments, She couldn't know the result of the battle. He left and she wouldn't even know what's going to happen. There is no communication, there is no phone, no WhatsApp, no nothing. She just have to live with this anxiety, with this fear, with this absolute powerlessness of having to wait for the result to come of what will happen in this epic battle. But then she learned, she got the news that the Muslims won. She asked, what happened? The Muslims won. What happened to Muhammad? Muhammad was safe. And then she asked, what happened to my husband, Al-As? And they told her, oh, your husband is now prisoner to Muhammad. And Muhammad is asking ransom in order to free the prisoners. So Zainab will rush to see what she can get in order to ransom her own husband. She doesn't have a lot of money, but she found a necklace, a precious necklace that her mother, Khadija, had given to her. She will take this necklace, she will pack it, she will give it to the brother of her husband, the brother of Al-As. Oh, please take it to Muhammad, give it on my behalf, give it to Muhammad so that he ransom my own husband. And now you have Muhammad sitting in Medina, receiving delegations who want to come and ransom their prisoners. And as he was receiving those ransoms and receiving people, he was given a package to open. Muhammad will take this package and he will open it only to find out it was the necklace of Khadija. And he gets so emotional and he cried and he looking at it, where is this coming from? This is Khadija's necklace. And then he was told, oh, this is from your own daughter Zainab. She wants to ransom her husband Al-As. And Muhammad was so emotional, he couldn't take the necklace. He couldn't see himself separating his daughter from that own necklace. He called his companions and he told them, hey companions, this guy, Al-As, my son-in-law, has been a good son-in-law to me. I've never seen anything really bad from him. Would you agree that I send him back to Medina, that I free him and send him back? And would you agree that I give him back this necklace that belongs to my daughter? Because he didn't want to take the necklace. And of course, the Muslim, they saw the emotions of their prophet and the respect of his own feelings. They agreed with him. And before Al-As was freed and sent to Mecca, Muhammad will tell him, come, I want to talk to you in private. He will take him on the side and he will tell him, first, take this necklace back to Zainab and tell her never to give away this necklace of Khadija. And the second thing he said to Al-As, he said, I am ordered by God to separate the Muslim woman from the non-Muslim pagan man. So would you please send me back my daughter when you go to Mecca? And Al-As agreed, even though he loved Zainab. So Al-As now returns to Mecca. He gives back the necklace to Zainab, but then he tells her, you have to go back to your father. I promised him. There's no choice. And Zainab will now leave her own husband and she will go to Medina. Another household separated, another household broken because of that epic story of when Muhammad became a prophet. So Zainab now will join Muhammad in Medina. In that time, the daughter of, we saw that Ruqayya had died, the second daughter, Kulthum, Muhammad will give her in marriage to Uthman ibn Affan also. So Uthman will marry now the second daughter of Muhammad. That's why he is known as Dhun Nurayn, the man with the two lights, because he married two of the daughters of Muhammad. And at that time as well, just shortly after Badr, a guy was feeling good about himself. Ali ibn Abi Talib, he was now an adult man. He wasn't a boy anymore. He had grown up to be strong. He was grown up to be a warrior, and he did really well in Badr. In fact, he was among one of the three warriors who were chosen to do the confrontation, and he was able to kill a big Qurashi leader. So he was feeling great about himself. He was on a high, and he had something to talk about with Muhammad. So Ali, the confident now, will go to Muhammad for a talk. He said, Muhammad, I want to talk to you. But then when he faced him, He was so shy. He wasn't able to speak. He wanted something, but he wasn't able to express it. And after a while, Muhammad will guess his thoughts and he will tell him, "Come on, Ali, what do you want? Is it Fatima?" And Muhammad will say, "Oh, yes, my prophet. Ali has grown up to be fond of Fatima and he wanted to marry her." And Muhammad was like, "Okay, what do you get? What do you get as a mahar? What do you get as a dowry for Fatima?" And Muhammad and Ali had nothing. He was an immigrant in Mecca. He was an immigrant in Medina. He had no property, no money, no nothing. So he didn't have anything. He was shy. But then he said, so Muhammad asked him, what do you have? Do you have a shield? The shield in the battle? Yes. I said, okay, we'll take the shield. That's your dowry, and you can marry Fatima. How interesting that if you remember when Ali grew up in the same household of Fatima. She was like almost like his sister, growing up in the same household, and he would fall in love with her and ask her for her marriage. Almost the same story as when Muhammad was growing in Abu Talib's home and he fell in love with her cousin. The only difference is that Muhammad wasn't lucky, or was lucky, we never know. He didn't marry, his crush, his cousin, but Ali will ask for Fatima and Muhammad will accept with him. So now you have a marriage concluded. Fatima and Ali will grow up to marry. So now you have Kulthum married to Osman, Fatima married to Ali. Zainab was alone in Medina. Even though she came, she was still young, in her own 20s, separated with her husband. All the men in Medina, many of them wanted to get close to her and to marry her. And of course, she was the daughter of a prophet. Who wouldn't want to marry her? So she was getting a lot of proposals, but she didn't want. She stayed alone for 6 years, hoping for one day she will be reunited with Al-As, her husband who was left in Mecca. And a day happened when Zayd, the adopted son of Muhammad, was raiding caravans around Mecca, and he raided a caravan that belongs to Al-As, the husband of Zainab, and they took all the properties, they took all the animals, and they brought it back to Medina as the gains of the raid. Al-As now, he lost everything. He came in the middle of the night to Medina, and he asked for Zainab's home, and just before sunrise, he went to Zainab's home, and he knocked on the door. And for the first time after 6 years, they met. Zainab will open to him the door. She will see her beloved ex-husband at that time. She will ask him, Al-As, did you come as a Muslim? He said, no. She said, Al-As, did you come to become a Muslim? He said, no. And she was like, but you know what? You're still my cousin. You're still the father of my kids. So welcome. Welcome home. And on that morning, just after the prayer of Fajr, Zainab will go to the mosque of Medina. She will be in the back. When the prayer finished, Zainab will stand up, will raise her hand, and will say, Al-As ibn al-Rabi', which is the name of her husband. Ana ajartuh, I protect him. And Muhammad listened like, what was that? He asked her companions, did you hear what I heard? They said, yes, Zainab is protecting her ex-husband Al-As. He said, oh my God, I didn't know about anything about that. He was even surprised himself. But at that time, Muslims, they have the right to protect people from other tribes. So Zainab, as a Muslim woman, she exercised her right to protect this man. She offered him her protection, and Muhammad agreed. So after the prayer, Muhammad will go to Zainab, will talk to her. He said, what's the story? She told him the story of Al-As, how he lost his caravan, how he came to Medina. And she told him, oh Muhammad, this man, if you consider him far, he's a cousin, because he's the son of the sister of Khadija. And if we consider him near, he's the father of the kids. So, and Muhammad said, yes, you're right. Honor him, welcome him, treat him well, but you cannot be intimate with him because he is not a halal to you. He can no longer be your husband as a non-Muslim. And Zainab agreed. And then Muhammad went back to his own companions. He saw how his own daughter was conflicted and sad because of her husband being in this situation, or her ex-husband. He went to his companions and he said, "Oh companions, this man, my son-in-law, Al-As, I've never seen anything wrong from him. And actually, he promised me to bring me back my daughter, and he fulfilled his word to me. Would you agree that we free him and give him back all his properties? If you agree, that will make me happy. And if you don't agree, I understand, and there is no blame on you." And of course, when the Muslims saw that Muhammad wanted that outcome, but he was shy to ask for it because it was for his own daughter that he was asking for it, they all agreed, and he said, "Oh Muhammad, we give him back his properties, send him back to Mecca." So Al-As, the husband of Zainab, was given back his property, and now he leaves and he goes back to Mecca with everything. He arrives to Mecca, he gives everything that he owns to the people that he owns them from. He gives the animals, the properties, the possessions, the trades. And when he finished giving back all his dues to the people of Mecca, he called them and he said, "Oh, people of Mecca, do I still owe you anything?" They said, "No, Al-As, you've been loyal, you've been trustworthy. Anything you owe us, you had returned." And he said, "Great. So now that I am free from my duty to you, I declare, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah." He declared, he witnessed to be a Muslim. And soon after, he would leave Mecca, he will go back to Medina as a Muslim, he will go straight to Muhammad in the mosque and he will declare his Islam to him, and Muhammad will welcome him as a Muslim man in Medina. And after he declared his Islam, Al-As will go to Muhammad and he will say, "One more thing, Prophet, can I go back to my wife, Zainab?" And Muhammad said, "All right, let me consult with her." And Muhammad will go to Zainab and he would say, "This cousin of yours looks like he's still interested. What do you think?" And Zainab, just like as she did the first time when she was a kid, when she was a young girl, young woman in Mecca, she will blush and she will smile. And then Muhammad knew that she still loved the man. And of course, they united them and they get married again in Medina. But their joy was not long lived, because only 1 year after they reunited again in Medina, Zainab will fall sick. She was 30 years old only, and she would die. And when she died, Al-As was devastated, and of course Muhammad as well. And they would bury her, and Al-As will be crying on her and crying and sobbing, and Muhammad himself was the one consoling Al-As and helping him dry his own tears. And Al-As would say, "Oh Muhammad, there is no meaning to my life after Zainab is gone. There is no meaning to life." And it's true, indeed, only few years later, shortly after, Al-As would also die. And on that same year, when Zainab died, Zayd, the adopted son of Muhammad, he would be sent as a head of an army to fight the Byzantine army, but he will never go back. Zayd, again, the love of Muhammad, the boy that he adopted as a son, the boy that believed in him, that grew up in his own household, that he loved so dearly, would also die in the battle of the Muslims. And Muhammad was devastated, and he went to Zayd to Zayd's own home, house, to announce the news to his family. Zayd at that time was married to a woman and also had a small little daughter that was still an infant. And Muhammad will tell them the news, and that little daughter will grab Muhammad with his, will grab Muhammad and doesn't want to take him away, and they will hug her, and he will cry with her while hugging the own daughter of Zayd. And that daughter of Zayd, she was called Ruqayya. And if you remember, Ruqayya is the name of the daughter of Muhammad who died at the fever in the days of Badr. So Zayd, in honor to his own sister, because he grew up with Ruqayya, in honor to Muhammad the Prophet, when he had a daughter, he called her Ruqayya at the name of the daughter of Muhammad who died. And now you have Muhammad hugging that little daughter Ruqayya, announcing to her that her own father Zayd had died. So imagine that moment. And 1 year after that, after Zainab and after Zayd will die, Kulthum, the wife of Osman, will also get sick and she will die. In those days of Medina, Muhammad will live to see all his daughters, one after the other, except for Fatima, die. At the end, from his own sons and daughters, he only had Ali, his adopted son, and Fatima, his own daughter, alive, where everybody else had died in his own lifetime. And even from his own grandchildren, the Ruqayya, his first daughter, she left a son called Abdullah. And at 6 years old, that son was playing in Medina and he got hit by a chicken in his eye and his eye got inflamed. Only he died later, little bit after. So again, his own grandchild was died. And then Ali, the son of Zainab, another grandson of him, again as an infant, will die. So at the end, from his own grandkids, by towards the end of his life, Muhammad had, of course, Hassan and Hussein, and the daughters of Zainab, Ali and Fatima. Hassan and Hussein, his own grandsons that he loved dearly. When they were born, he will do the azan in their own ears. He also had his adopted grandkid Usama, the son of Zayd, that he loved dearly, even though he wasn't his own blood, but he loved him as a grandson, really. And he also had Umama. Umama was the daughter of Zainab, who died at the end with her husband Al-As. So when her mother died, she was given to Muhammad as a young kid, orphan. And Muhammad took her in her custody when his own daughter died. And Muhammad loved her dearly. She was a little girl, Umama, who just lost her mother and given to him. And when Muhammad would be playing with her, and the time of the prayers will come, he wouldn't even have a heart to leave her. So he will take her with him to the mosque. He will put her on her back and he will enter the mosque. And one day he was being the imam of the mosque, but she was with him. She was on his own shoulder. And he will go to the mosque and he will do the prayer as an imam to everyone with Umama on his own shoulder. And then when Muhammad wanted to do the sujud, Muhammad will kneel down and she will take Umama and put her on the floor next to him. He will do the sujood, and then when he wants to stand up, he will take her back, put her on her shoulder, and stand up. He didn't have a heart even to leave her on the floor alone when he was standing up. And how could he leave her? Because he would recognize himself in her. Remember that when Muhammad was an orphan boy, when he lost his own mother, he was given to his grandfather Abdul Muttalib to take care of him, and Abdul Muttalib took him as my bunayya, my own son. Now it's Muhammad, the grandfather, and that little kid, it's like him. She just lost her mother and she was given to him in custody, and he was now the grandfather. And it's as if this girl was himself when he was the orphan boy. It's almost as if a full life coming to a circle, like this whole circle coming to a close. But so different it is from the moment when Muhammad was the orphan to the moment when now Muhammad is the grandfather taking care of Umama. When Muhammad was the orphan growing in the household of Abdul Muttalib, he was taught to be a Meccan, a Qurashi, a Bani Abdul Muttalib. He was taught to defend his tribe, to defend his clan, the honor of his own family. He was taught the honors of, you have to grow up and marry and get lots of sons and lots of money and be strong with your own tribal affiliations. But now that Muhammad, towards the end of his life, it's a different world. Muhammad now was teaching to men and women from all ethnicities and all tribes. Muhammad was no longer teaching about defend your tribe and your clan. He was teaching about at-taqwa, being good, about justice, about al-husna, doing the good to others. He was teaching about not just getting money and getting status. He was teaching about caring for the orphan, caring for the poor. It's a different world. Here it was a completely different values when Muhammad was leaving the world at the end. And it's true because he lived by those worlds. You saw from a glimpse of his story that he did not prioritize his own well-being. He did not prioritize his own family's well-being. In fact, he put his family in danger. He put them at perils in at many places. He took them to battles. He took them. They had to go through immigrations because of him. His own household has to split. His own daughters had to divorce. His own daughters had to die in immigration. His own adopted son will one day be declaring victory. To the other day, he will go to a battle and he wouldn't go back. It's really through these trials and tribulations, through these striving, these efforts, these struggles, these perils that he had to go through, these heartbreaks, his own daughter separating from her husband, from those heartbreaks, from those ups and downs, through all these cycles that he was able to deliver, that he delivered his message to humanity, that Islam, can reach us today. This is how this story came to be alive. And the meaning of those words that he would utter when he was in Mecca, Am lil insani ma tamanna, is to man what he wishes? Oh no. فَلِلَّهِ الْآخِرَةُ وَالْأُولَى, is to God the beginning and the end. وَإِنَّ إِلَى رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى, is to God the return. وَأَنَّهُ هُوَ أَضْحَكَ وَأَبْكَى, it is He who gives laughter, it is He who gives tears. وَأَنَّهُ أَمَاتَ وَأَحْيَا, it is He who brings death, it is He who gives life. Those words were not just words that he was reciting, he was living by them. Without that faith in something bigger than him guiding that story, how could he go through all of these moments and still remain peaceful and sane and focused and strong and still be able to deliver? Those were the words that he didn't just recite, he really embodied and he lived. And that's why Muhammad now is no longer just a Makki and a Qurashi or a Bani Abdul Muttalib or a Hashimi. Now he's a man who belongs to humanity. His message belongs to everyone. This is why we now are telling and sharing his own story. But he doesn't know anything of it yet. So please don't tell him anything. He's now still in his 30s. He's still in Mecca with his family, with his kids, with his daughters, with his cousins visiting. Everything's fine. So don't tell him what's going to happen. What will happen to him? That will shift everything, that will turn his life ups and downs, that will make this whole roller coaster for him and his family, is what we will see in the next session. Thank you, everyone.